Hello everybody, I'm Ross Brunson from LPI, the membership director, and we're going to do a Google Hangout video interview with Justin Barwick of GCW Zero. How you doing, Justin?
Howdy.
Right.
Great. How are you?
Good. So hey, let's go ahead and talk about your project. As a matter of fact, what happened was I was looking at Kickstarter for open source projects and discovered that you had a project, had already gone through your funding, and I reached out to contact you, and it just all snowballed from there. So why don't you do me a favor and tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and then tell us what the project is.
Well, I'm the CEO of GCW. Started out as a retailer, basically, in gaming consoles. I mean, I got an IT background too, and deal with Linux all the time. So that's been a huge plus for me and made me learn to love and respect open source and how it can cause innovation versus something that just kind of is closed source and kind of stagnates for long periods of time. But either way, I was a retailer for about 5 years of open source. Well, I shouldn't say they were open source, mostly of them closed source, but gaming consoles. And it got to the point they would tell me all the time about problems they would have with the console. This didn't work, that didn't work, what they wanted the console to do. And I'd go to the manufacturer would come back and say, oh yeah, sure, we'll do that in our next model. I'd go back, advertise, say, yeah, guys, here's what's coming, here's what's going to be the greatest next thing since sliced bread.
Oh,
Then
no.
the console came out, and all it was a rehash of the same console with a new look. And so, after a while, I'm like, man, I could do this.
Right.
Unbeknownst to me, there was a lot of hurdles to jump and a lot of things I didn't know when I got into it. And I've made quite a few mistakes along the way, but I've learned from those mistakes and I've moved forward. And I think I've made a pretty darn good console. But I mean, I just had to do it. It was one of those things that you get tired of everybody telling you, this is what you're going to be stuck with. I mean, there are so many major brands out there, consoles, and, oh no, you can't do this. Oh no, you can't do that. If you break into the firmware and make it do what you want to do, we'll sue you. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Nah,
Right.
Make an open source console and you don't have to worry about it.
There you go. Yeah, it's kind of like having children. If you knew it all was involved in raising them, you may or may not have done it right. So
well, that's what they call a child $1 million investment.
That's right, $1 million and 30-year investment. Well, hopefully this this is $1 million and a 30-year investment that you're making payoff. So tell us a little bit about the actual project itself. So and I know all of my geeks out there are going to want to know exactly what the hardware is and what it does and all that. So give us a description of the hardware that you've put together, and then we can talk about why we might want to use one and some of the legal issues and things like that.
Okay, the processor is based on an Ingenic MIPS 1 gigahertz processor. It's got 512 gig DDR2 RAM running at 800 megahertz. It's got a 16 gig internal storage. It's micro SD, so if it failed, you could remove that SD and replace it, versus if it was NAND, you wouldn't be able to replace it. It would just be go out and buy another console. Okay. It has an external slot. We've tested it to, 64 gig SDXC so far. I'm sure that it could probably do more, but it hasn't been tested there. It's got a 3.5-inch LCD, 16 million color, a true digital D-pad, a true analog stick, and shoulder buttons, and 4 select buttons like A, X, Y, and B.
Okay.
But we've kind of reversed it on the A, X, Y, and B, so that way we don't have Nintendo come after us or anybody else.
That's what I was going to ask you, if they were going to look at this and go, oh, this looks a lot like one of our consoles. So you've taken some steps to make sure that it's unique, right?
Correct.
Cool. So what is it exactly, and why would we want one, and then what is it not?
Well, it's definitely not your ordinary home console or actual portable console. It's based on the premise of open source and having many developers come on board. biggest premise is indie developers. We want more indie developers.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing with indie developers is that, like I've brought up in other interviews too, is right now it's at the point that 10 indie developers may come to the table, and out of 10, you'll be lucky if you get 1 to 3 developers that actually get a title out there.
Okay.
We want to get open source out there. We want to get indie developers. We want to embrace them. Like when we were at PAX, he's one of my core developers, but it doesn't matter. He had developed a game, and so we promoted the heck out of it out there at PAX.
Great.
We enjoyed it. I mean, we got a lot of rave reviews, made a lot of contacts. Now let's see what it is. It's an open source gaming console, basically a mini computer within itself, because we provided HDMI and analog TV out, USB on the go. So I mean, it can be set as a desktop, so you could have it right there, hooked up your TV, and hook a wireless controller up and play it like it's a home console, or you could take it on the go, or you could hook it up to a screen or monitor and use it as a computer.
Wow.
I mean, so we've kind of marketed it in 50 million different ways, but the biggest thing is that it promotes and really goes for the open source market and the ability that 99.9% of it is free.
Right.
There's nothing else on the market. How many people are going to hand you a console with 50 games to start and go, oh, by the way, all of them are free. You don't have to pay any extra money.
Oh. Nobody? Yeah, so you said it was 99.9% free. There's always going to be somebody who's going to ask, okay, so what's not free?
Well, we've taken a step in the emulation direction. The emulation direction would be that we've gotten licensed for C64 and Amiga. It's the emulator itself is not illegal. The gray area is the BIOS file that emulator requires.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to get that BIOS file is by illegally downloading it and illegally using it. Well, we've taken steps to go ahead and get the licensing, and basically you'll pay, we don't have an exact set price yet. I'm waiting for that licensing to come through, and I would figure anywhere from $1.99 to $5 you could buy that BIOS file. Well, at that point, you've got the open source emulator, got the BIOS put into it, and voila, you've got a complete 100% legal emulation of a console, or actually I shouldn't say a console, a computer,
right,
that pretty much no longer exists anymore. I mean,
mm-hmm.
yeah, they're in rummage sales and people do repairs on them and stuff, but, I don't know how many are still out there. Not very many, I would think.
Right. I think Andy Anatko probably has 5 in a storage locker somewhere, and that's the most for the East Coast. So this reminds me a little bit of the whole AT&T Unix, over to the BSDs, where they got most of everything, but pretty soon they had to actually sit down and just actually write the kernel. Those
right,
7
correct.
or 8 core files that had to be done. Well, it's good that you're doing that in such a way that, and there is a cost associated with it. And I think a lot of people will be very reasonable about that and go, okay, well, I can play these games, but if I want to play these, then I have to pay a little bit extra because there is a licensing fee involved. Right? So, okay, yeah. That's good.
We brought more licensing to the table besides just the Commodore and the Amiga. We got licensed, what was it, on Thursday of last week, just before we went to PAX. It was great. 3D Realms / Apogee Software gave us licensing for Duke Nukem. So basically, you can play Duke 1, 2, and Manhattan Project, Duke 3D Atomic Edition, Blake Stone, Cosmos Adventure, Wacky
awesome.
Wheels. I mean, and most of those games will sell from $1.99 to $3.99. The good thing about it is it's $2 cheaper on most aspects than GOG.com.
Mm-hmm. Good old games, right?
So that's number one, your first win.
Okay.
Your second win is we're going to give you in the DOSBox version, so you'll be able to play it on your PC or play it in Linux if you have Wine.
Okay.
Third bonus, you can go ahead and play it on your console because we got the open source engines.
Nice. Very nice. So tell me a little bit about, I still can't believe you got 3D Realms. What about Wolf and stuff like that? Is any of that in there?
Wolfenstein 3D? Yep.
Oh.
It's one of our titles.
There goes my productivity for a week at least right there. I think I'm going to go to the DMV 3 times that week just so I can stand in line and play. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about some of the. There's going to be some questions, I'm sure, from people about things like OpenMoco and the other available hardware designs. Your hardware is not a open hardware design. It's something that you
No,
actually
I mean,
created.
right. I mean, we took it from stuff that's proprietary, but we are taking the step. I mean, of course, I'm not going to be able to give you the designs. I'm not going to be able to give the schematics to the
Right.
processor, the ability to make it into an FPGA or anything like that. But we are taking steps to make all the drivers we can open source. So right
Great.
now, the OpenGL driver is closed source.
Mm-hmm.
The HDMI, the OTG are all closed source.
Yeah.
We're so close
Makes
on the
sense.
OTG, it's pitiful. We've got it powering up, we've got it detecting. So a couple more steps, and we'll have open source OTG.
Awesome.
We're close to OpenGL, but I think we're going to have to ship the console with closed
Proprietary.
source.
Okay.
But we're still having problems with that too. We're still dealing with Ingenic and Vivient
I
on
see.
that aspect to get the OpenGL working. So I mean, closed source or open. I'm kind of 50-50 on whether we're
Okay.
going to ship the console with OpenGL or not.
Great.
And the analog TV out and the HDMI, we're still in works on those two. But I mean,
Okay.
when
But
you're dealing with open source, it takes time.
yeah, takes time, takes energy, takes people and talent, right? Cool. So what do you envision? You know, we're all aware of Raspberry Pi and all the other kit computers and stuff like that out there. Sounds like you're going to be able to do a lot of stuff with this little console. Tell me you got one
Hmm.
around there somewhere, do you? You got one hanging
Yeah,
around?
hang on.
Okay. Okay. Now hold it back just a little bit. There we go. Oh, there you go. Oh, nice. Okay. Looking good. Nice
Hang
white.
on.
Does it come in multiple colors or is it standard
Yeah,
white?
we've got black also.
Okay. Hold her still there.
There you go, in all of her color glory in her menu.
Awesome. This is excellent. Okay, so you're going to send me some screenshots, right, of some of these things? Photos or
Yeah,
something
hang
like
on one
that?
sec. I may be able to. I don't know if this one's got it on it or not.
You know, I told Matt, our exam development lead, about this,
Uh huh.
and I don't think anybody wants one more than he does. He can't wait. He'll have all kinds of stuff running on it in no time.
There you go. That's unnamed monkey game running on the console right now.
That's awesome. Totally awesome. So it
That's one of
ships.
our core. That's our core developers indie title.
Okay. Awesome. I can't wait to see that. Okay, so now some of the ideas that people have out there for the use of these little computers, because they really are computers.
Right.
So you're saying that you could hook this up to a television and use a remote or wireless or whatever controller
Mm-hmm.
and play it on the television. You can basically hook it up and turn it into a computer because it's got the
Correct.
HDMI out and all that. And
Correct.
what's the networking that's available on it?
It's got a Wi-Fi in class right at about 150.
Okay, awesome. Okay, that's very good. So essentially, you can just hook this thing up, have it sitting there, do what you're doing. It's time to go on the road. Unhook it, turn it off, or whatever. Sleep it, pop it in the bag, and off you go. Play the exact same games and all the stuff that you were doing while you're out on the road, right?
Yeah. I mean, and the other aspect too is that we've made it open source and we've made our OS open source. So
Okay.
essentially, this does not have to be what it is. I mean, anybody could make it into a media server.
Okay.
I mean, they could do anything with it. I mean, that's the
Okay.
beauty of open source.
Right. So somebody could take, say, Xbox Media Console and pop that on there and use that.
I there have been talks of people wanting to do it, kind of like they do with
Okay.
the Raspberry Pi. The
Right.
only good thing about the only good thing that's different about the Raspberry Pi is that with no modifications, no massive spending of money to be able to make it look like a portable console, this is portable and also something you can use at home
I see.
at a very reasonable price for the amount of technology that's in it. I mean, because this is faster than the
Hmm.
Raspberry Pi. It has more memory than the Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
It has wireless, which the Raspberry Pi requires a dongle to be plugged into it.
Okay. Yeah, my CEO got a big a package of the Raspberry Pi and from I forget who it was, Allied or something like that, and then spent the next week and a half putting it together. So I think there's a market for both of those, and obviously.
Oh, there is. I mean, the Raspberry Pi is a great piece of kit. I mean,
yeah.
Personally, I'm on the waiting list.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, we've been talking to those folks. Like I've been talking to you, trying to get interviews and things like that. But I really like the fact that yours is a self-contained device. If you don't want to do anything other than just get one and use it for what it's intended for,
Right.
it's simple. You power it up, you're ready to go. So for those who want to do that, and those who want to hack and play around and all that, that's all available too. So I really like the idea of the hardware. So people are going to ask, and I know they're going to ask this, so I just ask you anyway. Is it too late to get in on the Kickstarter project?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at this point, yeah. I mean, we plan to have it retail sometime in May, and it'll be about $15. It'll be $15 more than what the Kickstarter was.
Okay.
The Kickstarter was kind of a bonus, giving them at least a little bit of a price cut. You're looking at $150 is going to be the actual retail price.
Okay. Great.
And some of the retailers may carry it for $169. I mean, I can't control what a retailer does. All I can do is put a cap limit on it. I put a cap limit of $170.
Okay.
So if they go over that, then they risk their reseller ability with me.
$169.99.
Yep.
I hear you. So tell me, what out of all the stuff that you've gone through, what was the absolute coolest thing, and what was the hardest thing about bringing this to market so far?
The hardest thing is that I work a day job, and so I work 10 to 12 hours a day, and then at night I come home and I work about another 8 hours to 9 hours on GCW. I get about 4 hours, 5 hours a night sleep.
Okay.
So, but I mean that's been the norm for me since December 2011 when this journey started. So,
okay.
Nothing new there, and I've done it before in the past. Other hardest part was when we did the first little production run, and come to find out every last one of the card readers was bad, and so basically everything had to be torn apart and resoldered, and then we went a month and a half of doing that, and then we realized, okay, crap. We're just going to have to put them through the reflow and take everything off and start over.
I see.
And
just
so, I mean,
deconstruct them and make them again, right? Yeah. So what's the greatest thing so far? I mean, what's the thing that just makes you, turn backflips about this?
Being embraced by the open source community. I mean, oh my God. I didn't think I would be embraced as much as I have been. I mean, I've had people tell me, like, "Oh, you're a god," and it's like, it's not what I intended. It's like,
no, okay, I'm root, buddy. I'm root.
But it's like, I did this because I wanted to do it. I got started with this because this was a dream, and I wanted to build something that should have been built a long time ago. I mean, all these incremental upgrades of, oh, let's move up 100 megahertz. Oh, let's move up 100 megahertz. What's the point if the technology is there? Am I going to move to a quad core? No, couldn't afford it.
Right.
And it would cost way too much to put it on the market.
I see.
The other part, PAX. Oh my God. I couldn't believe how many developers embraced it. I mean, best one is Ack Studios. It's AACK, the two brothers. They have, matter of fact, I forwarded you a Twitter about them. They've already, you can see the Twitter. It says that they can't wait to get it on the GCW Zero. It's an awesome game Linux console.
Cool.
I took it over to their CEO and showed it to him, and I thought, okay, foul left. He's going to throw it in the trash can by the time we got done. And 20 minutes later, I see this wall of people with him being the lead person coming towards me. Come to find out, he left two people to run the booth and brought pretty much all the developers over.
Sweet.
And pretty much told us, bar none, he was going to get his game working on our console.
No, that's cool.
So, that was impressive.
It's so nice to see that kind of commitment, Yeah, but that's what you get for doing something, that's sort of philanthropic and putting it into open source instead of just building yet another proprietary console. You could have taken all the things that you've done and built a closed source console. You didn't have to do what you did. We at LPI, that's one of the things that we're trying to do is is get folks like you in front of all of our candidates out there. You know, we got 275,000 people out there who just love to hear this kind of stuff, love to see people making stuff, using open source, you know, given the big guys, you know, Pepto-Bismol moments, you know, because of what you're doing. What you're doing is you're advancing the field forward. And that's something that we really wanted to talk to you about. Well,
that's what I'm doing, is studying for LPI myself.
I know. We talked about that. So I'm thinking maybe if we were to get a console, somebody might get a voucher. I'm just kidding.
Oh, you're definitely going to get one no matter what. So I'm not sweating that one. But yeah, I mean, you know, I do IT security for a living, and so I mean, I know most of the Linux commands and stuff like that, and it's not an issue. But it would be so cool to have that certification to go along with it.
Well, you know,
because just having the knowledge in your head doesn't really count for anything. You've got to have that certification that says that you have that knowledge, you've proven you have that knowledge, and that makes you jump leaps and bounds in the business and also the open source community. It gives me more respect as an individual with people when I go to them and say I'm about open source.
Right, and I'm verifiably about open source in my personal life, my professional life, and all that, and my organization. Cool.
That's right.
Very cool. Well, tell me one last question. How, and this is kind of a leading question, but I think a lot of people need to hear what it was like. How has your basing this device on open source technologies and Linux, how did that affect your development time frame and your costs and just the, you know, the likelihood of you actually succeeding with this?
For the most part, it was great because we had a base to go with. I mean, there are some. If we had gone with the proprietary binaries, done.
Right.
Would have been completely done. But we're focusing more on open source.
Right.
So that has cost some delays and cost some more development time. But that's on us. I mean, the proprietary stuff is already out there. I mean, I could have used it.
Well, it costs money too, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, because then I got to make the licensing agreements and everything else. And but some of the stuff doesn't require licensing, but it limits the hardware so much.
Yeah.
Because they wrote it for a specific purpose with a narrow field in mind when they made it. Yeah. Now, ours is open source and trying to open up that field, going, oh, but I could do this. Oh, but I could do that. Ooh, this would be cool.
Yeah.
You know, and with it being open source, that means more people can jump in and innovate and go with forward ideas where I left off at. So that makes it even better because that makes the OS grow even more. The kernel just becomes like this splendid thing that has a life of its own.
That's what it's all about. Exactly.
That's right.
Well, Justin, I can't tell you how exciting this is, especially all those announcements you just told us about and the deals that you got going. So I think everybody should go to your site, which is what?
www.gcw-zero.com.
Justin, thanks very much. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
Talk to you soon.
Yep.